matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And we are recording in progress. Taylor, hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm trying to fake energy right now, so
No.
if it seems forced, just tell me, and I'll go back to just like my normal tone
No.
right now.
I like it. How are you? Happy Sunday. I mean, it is late for you, and it's cold. I thought, wait, did it snow by you this week? Was it this week that it snowed?
It was last week that it snowed, but it is kind of cold. Also, like, it's a weird time because it's like almost getting a little bit too late to like eat dinner without feeling like shit going to sleep, but it's like dinner time. I don't know. It's just a weird time, but it's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Cool.
So we had your story this week, and
Wait, let me intro us.
yeah, God,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Hello. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. This is our second story of the week. We are the podcast that brings you history's most notorious disasters, failures, interesting stories. And I'm Taylor, joined by Farz. I'm in California, he's in Texas, so that's why we're talking about time differences and weather, because we're not next to each other.
Yes,
We're just over the internet.
just like everything else in the world.
Mhm.
So my story today is, it sounds boring initially, but then the more you like dig into it, the more you scratch at the surface, the more you realize like how deep it goes, which is kind of fun.
Cool.
So I want to talk about the U.S. food supply.
Ooh.
And I'm going to break it down into several sections. One is, why is the way that it is?
Mhm.
The other section being spoiler alert, why it's bad. What it could be instead, and
Ooh.
see what we can kind of get to with this. So
Oh, I'm excited. That's cool.
there's some stuff in here, Taylor, that are going, if it doesn't blow your mind, then you already know like everything about food supply. Like
I don't, so
I
please tell me
could
more.
I could not believe the stuff I found out. This was just absolutely disgusting. And the other thing, okay, so I'm gonna start this out by saying, on the why it's bad part, or why it is the way that it is. I know that at 40 years old, I'm approaching the age of like my fist raised saying it was better once, you know, like that
Oh,
crazy old
100%.
man, and like
Yeah.
like
Old man yells at cloud.
yeah, and like in the and I'm raising that because like, I don't know, you and Taylor, you and I talk about this every now and then, where it's like, I don't know, maybe this is the way that it should be because we're humans and we change and adapt, and like things change, and like how much of it is like us shaking our fists in the air versus like whatever. Maybe we're meant to eat, you know, hydrogenated fats. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
we'll just adapt as a human species, and we'll just like become a different version of ourselves. Maybe this is just the way that it is, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I think, anyways.
I mean, I feel like I don't know. The thing about time travel is that you couldn't eat the food,
So here's one thing I did hear
you know?
recently that is
Yeah.
fascinating. Apparently, part of the reason why our brains are like so big and efficient and like work the way they do has to do with the invention of fire. Because once we invented fire, we didn't need to dedicate as much energy and resources and blood flow and all that stuff to the digestive tract, because we could cook food,
Ah.
which resulted in us having a contract. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like, I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing we're all fat as shit. Like I don't know. Maybe that's the way it's supposed to work. And then in like 200 years, that generation of humans, they're gonna adapt, and eating Oreos for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is gonna be good for them.
It's like did you see Wall-E?
No, I didn't. I heard it's sad though.
It is sad, but the Earth is essentially just a pile of garbage, and even more than it is so
Fair.
now. And the humans had to leave, and they left, and they're all on this ship, and they're all just like, all they do is sit on these like floating chairs and drink soda and like bump into each other.
Yeah, I mean I mean it's
Eh,
horrible, but that's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna start by throwing out some stats about like health in general in the US. So across like every metric that is measurable, body weight and like fat concentration on a human body tends to be the most dependable and widely used figure to gauge physical health. Like that's not an American thing or European thing. That's just like the whole world all around.
Hmm.
According to the CDC, the average weight of men from 1960s to early 2000s went from 166 to 199, and for women it went from 140 to 171. Interestingly enough, we also increased in height, but the height increase that we saw would lead to like somewhere around 3 to 4 pounds of natural weight gain, not this percentage that we're seeing right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, part of this conversation gets a little bit convoluted. And the reason for that is that we're all different. And because we're all different, we don't have a very clean, affordable, concise, accessible way to measure body fat.
Hmm.
So BMI, the body mass index, is the thing that we use to call someone overweight, obese, or normal, whatever. But it's like really bad. Like do you know all the issues with this thing?
Well, I do know like it's not taking into an account like your muscles or your things like that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's just like dividing your height by your weight and telling you how big you should be.
Yeah. LeBron James, I did the math on this. He's overweight.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Literally the most
Exactly.
athletic man the world has ever produced is
I saw
considered
something
overweight.
funny that it was like a guy on Instagram who was like they sent a social worker to his house because he was drastically underweight for his height and he only had one leg.
Yeah, yeah,
And he was like,
exactly.
"Yeah, of course. I'm missing an entire leg, you know."
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny.
So like, so I'm gonna be throwing out a lot of like stuff around obesity and overweight, and it's all based on BMI, which again is not a amazing indicator, but I would probably wager that it's within like a 70% margin of error, correct? Give or take is my guess right now.
Correct like in what correct in how?
As in, like most people on the bell
Like
curve fall in the middle of the bell,
got it.
and therefore they are not on the extremes of missing limbs or being abnormally physically fit, like a LeBron James. That's what I
Right.
mean.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So, but again, like it doesn't account for an actual bodybuilder would be considered like morbidly obese because those guys weigh like 300 pounds and they have 2% body fat.
Right.
So, um, so with all that being said, some quick stats. So the obesity rate in the US is about 42%. 75 or so percent, between 72 and 75% of Americans are at the very least overweight. Obesity is the other 42% there. And obviously this is due to several factors. One is food intake, the other is exercise. So, um, part of this is such an interesting topic because I remember this was like a huge deal during in the middle of COVID where all these like health people were like people need to lose weight and then their comorbidities drop and then the impact of COVID is lessened because the biggest comorbidity we have is our weights.
Hmm.
And like that was like I know that wasn't a popular opinion. People don't want to say that, but like the things that are linked to being overweight, cardiovascular diseases like hypertension and heart failure, type
Hmm.
2 diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, risk of stroke. There's like a million every horrible thing that can happen to you gets dramatically worse based on being overweight. This
Yeah.
part's incredible. So, oddly enough, despite a brief dip in lifespan, contraction in the US because of COVID, our lifespan is going up. It's an inverse relationship, or well, I guess it's a direct relationship between becoming more overweight and our lifespan increasing. But that also explains why our healthcare is the way it is.
Hmm.
So all this stuff we architected around our insanely convoluted, complex, and overpriced healthcare system, all the incentive structures around research and development for drug manufacturers, all of this is being done because our lifestyles are becoming more sedentary, we're gaining more weight, and our
Hmm.
medical costs are increasing. So they're just coming up with more and more creative ways to keep us alive longer.
Hmm.
So imagine how much better we would be doing, how much longer we could potentially be living if like none of this was an issue.
Right. And I think but also like I know some companies do interesting things like I know like my friend worked at Disney and if you like rode your bike to work, you got like an extra certain amount of money a week or something, like just to like keep you healthy because it's less expensive for them to like try to keep you alive that way than it is like via healthcare, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And the numbers kind of bear that out. So these numbers aren't going to sound that dramatic, but it's a pretty good indicator of like where things are headed. So the average cost of healthcare per person in 1970 was $2,100. That's adjusted for inflation.
Wow.
Real number was like $300.
Hmm.
Today it's $14,570.
Hmm.
So it's a 7x increase in the cost of maintaining someone's health. So there's also some caveats here, like I said before. So like there's some people where being like being very few people can actually get into like movie star shape, like six packs and all
Right.
that stuff. Like that's
It
not.
has to like be your job.
Yeah, you have to like have the money for a chef. You have to like it has exactly it has to be your job.
Hmm.
And but like the vast majority of people can just get to a place where like they're like mostly fit. Like I mean, I know for myself when I look at myself every now and then, it's like wow, my love handle's really starting to sag. Like it's like okay, us do something here. Like
Yeah.
this is getting out of hand.
Hmm.
But it is also true that some people have lower resting metabolic rates. Some people
Hmm.
are predisposed to retain fat more easily. Some
Hmm.
people lack the hormones that drive satiation of feeling full. There's a
Oh,
whole
interesting.
host of reasons why people could not be in a position to lose weight. I will say
Hmm.
that through this research, the vast majority of people aren't in that category. Again, it's like the
Hmm.
LeBron James situation. That you're looking at the bell curve. It's on the opposite side of that bell curve. So about 10% of the population falls into that category. That does not account for the 75% of us who are overweight or obese. So
Right.
there's that. So why are we gaining weight and becoming sicker than the rest of the world? What do you think, Taylor?
Their food
Yes. Well, so it's food and it's
and our
lifestyle,
lifestyle.
but it's
Yeah.
like 97% food. The whole
Hmm.
like fact that we don't have like I mean, you lived in New York. Like what was it like? How did your body feel in New York? Because weren't you walking like
Oh
everywhere?
yeah. Oh my God. Totally. I walked miles a day. Yeah, it definitely was like super, not like, I don't know, whatever. I was way more fit in New York than I am anywhere else because you're moving constantly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I was in Lisbon in Portugal like 3 years ago, um I Lisbon's super hilly. Like everything is up and
Hmm.
down hills. And I actually injured my knee because like I was overweight and out of shape and not
Yeah.
used to walking a lot. And it stunned me because you'd look over and you'd see like a local who was like an 87-year-old woman and she was like lugging like a side of beef
Of course she
on her
was. Good for
back
her.
up. It was
Yeah.
like our lifestyle's not good either, but we're not going to
Yeah.
address that here.
That's hilarious. And I love her. And there's so many old women in those, and like, yeah, when I was in Italy, there were women like that too, like just
It's
lugging their
incredible.
stuff, wearing their little low-heeled shoes. And you're like, oh my God, you're like 200 years old. I love you so much. Great job.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Also, like as I was researching this, I like pulled out all the data on blue zones. You
Hmm.
know, the place
Hmm.
where people live dramatically longer, and it was I don't know. There's like some conspiracies around that like maybe those aren't really a thing, and really it's just an indication of like pension fraud because like people are just
Oh,
like claiming that their dead grandmother's still alive to
sure.
get their pension.
That's funny. But I was thinking about that when you said that because like I heard and I don't know if how I think maybe I've said this before, but like I heard one indicator is like cultures where you have to sit on the floor and get up a lot. Like that really helps.
Dude, yeah, the combined effort of it is like really useful. So like,
Yeah.
not to like again, I'm not in good shape. Like I'm definitely overweight. I definitely could lose like 30 pounds and like not be hurt by that. But I will say that I started doing yoga consistently about 3 years ago. My knee pain's gone. My knee and back
Yeah.
pain is totally gone, and like I don't even notice it anymore. And I can do stuff now that I'm like surprised by my body that it can do like the
Hmm.
elasticity of joints and stuff like it kind of surprises me every now and then just like a little bit of this stuff has a huge cumulative effect it seems like.
There were a couple of years in New York when I was doing yoga regularly, and I do it every once in a while now, but very rarely. But where I could like touch my toes, that was like the only time in my life I could do it. Like I
Dude,
can't do it now. I couldn't do it for a long time. It took like a year of yoga to get to the point where I could touch my toes.
Taylor, like even now at like what I weigh now, given how much I've done yoga, I could literally put my entire palm on the ground while I'm standing.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I'm proud of you.
But dude, like 4 years ago, I couldn't move. Like I would wake up and
Yeah.
I'd lay in bed because my back hurt so much. I wasn't doing anything.
I saw another thing. one time on the internet that was like, I hate to tell everybody this, but I actually feel better after doing yoga in the morning. And you're like, ugh, like you know that it would make you feel better, but you just don't want to.
I mean, I can't do it in the morning because
No.
like I'm not motivated to do anything in the morning.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so getting back to this. So I wrote down about like how generally speaking, and you know this about me, I don't like to ascribe blame. I think things happen for a reason. Like there's a history behind everything, whatever, yada yada yada. But I will say that I'm starting to think that our food system is almost entirely driven by like malice towards children. Like a desire to hook them on things that they shouldn't
Oh,
want, shouldn't
interesting.
have,
Yeah,
and keep them
yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
So one thing I looked at here because it just came up as news because it just got banned, but red dye number 3.
Yeah.
So this is food coloring, red, obviously, like a candy red that's used in gum, in Pez, candy corn, jelly bellies, sour gummies, fruit by the foot. Any cookies with red icing has this.
Mm-hmm.
And like pretty much anything with like vivid red coloring has red dye number 3.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1980s is when researchers found that this kind of dye causes cancer in lab rats. And as a result,
Wow.
it was banned by the FDA for use in cosmetics. But they said that ingesting the dye had like an acceptable level of risk. So they kept allowing manufacturers to use it in food and medicine supply.
'Cause we learned in the thalidomide episode that like it was the federal like it was FDA drug administration and cosmetics, like food, drug, and cosmetics.
It's crazy.
Because it was like also like of course that makes sense. That part of it is like something you would put on your body. Like it's like a
Put on
fluid.
your body. But why would you ban the thing that you? Why would you ban the thing you put on your body and not the thing you put in
Put
your
in
body?
your body. Yeah. No, good point. I don't think yeah. I'm gonna say money.
Yeah, yeah. I
Lobbyist
mean,
money.
we're gonna get to it, but yeah, obviously, right.
That and intentional malice towards children.
Like
That's like part
legitimately,
of
there's
it.
somebody twirling a mustache, clubbing a baby seal, and like
The children.
putting lobby dollars into like red dye number 3.
Yes.
So it was only in January of this year, 2025, that the FDA mandates that it be removed from the food supply by 2027 and removed from medicine by 2028. Comparison here: Europe removed it and banned it in 1994. Like we've been eating this.
I love Jelly Bellies.
how is that anything but absolute malice? Like
I know.
how am I supposed to
No, I
know that?
know. How can you? I don't know how you can sleep at night, but you know, like if your job is to do that. Like, wow. I don't know.
So let me ask this, Taylor. This is the part where I ask you a question.
Okay.
Can you think of any other products from like an earlier era that were aimed at kids that weren't good for them
Um, besides like the just sugary things,
besides sugary things?
um, cigarettes.
I wrote, that's right, cigarettes.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
So what could the overlap here possibly be? Can you take any guesses what the overlap here is?
Um, is it like addiction?
No.
What is it? You tell me.
We'll go. So a lot was going on in corporate America in the 1980s and the 1990s.
Is it Ronald Reagan?
No. So no, actually, in this case, but Reagan did have something to do here, which I'll talk about here in a moment. So in the late 1980s, that was when the first round of successful lawsuits against tobacco companies alleging
Oh.
misleading advertisement,
Hmm.
advertisement focusing on children specifically, and
Like with Joe
them
Camel?
knowing Joe Camel and them knowing that cigarettes are addictive and them knowing that it causes cancer and not stating that to their
Hmm.
customers.
Hmm.
So all these lawsuits are huge and take forever, which means if you're a litigant in one of these things, you can see the writing on the wall for like a very long time, right? The lawsuit gets filed in 83, concludes in 92. So like you know something's coming down the pipe.
Hmm.
Legitimately that was the actual date. So like there's a case called Cipolone versus Leggett Group, which is somebody who sued this massive tobacco company, not the biggest one, but one of the big ones. And they had to pay damages for the cancer that product gave to the customer. And that case literally started in 83 and ended in 92. So
They're the only person to sue for that.
No,
right?
no. What ends up happening in these situations is one case breaks the barrier because it's so
Right.
obvious and egregious. Then the dam is broke, and then all these class actions come in behind it.
Hmm.
So that was 83 to 92. In 1985, the 49th largest company in the US and the largest tobacco company in the world was a company called Altria Group. And that is the parent company of Philip Morris, which
Hmm.
makes every cigarette you know of.
Hmm.
Marlboro, like cool, whatever. All of them are made by these guys. And they saw the writing on the wall. This is absolutely blows my mind. So they go out in 1985 and acquire General Foods for $5.6 billion dollars.
Hmm.
Then in 1988, they buy Kraft Food for 13.1 billion dollars. Then in 2000, they buy Nabisco Holdings, all of which
Wow.
are merged into Kraft General Foods.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's a
they
big,
maintain.
big book.
Yeah, big book of business. So they maintained their holdings here for about until about 2007, and before they started selling bits of it off. But those 22 years they held on to this were pretty important. So during those years, the world's biggest tobacco company controlled the ingredients, supply, distribution, marketing, and advertising for every brand name staple at the American, like an American grocery store. Isn't that
Wow.
insane?
That's insane.
Did you know this?
No.
I couldn't
What was
believe this.
what was the, was that because they were looking, they needed something else to like make money on while cigarettes were getting less and less popular?
Yeah, because they knew they saw that like all these lawsuits are coming, and we're not. I'm not gonna sell my beach house. Like, yeah, go find some
Yeah.
other stuff we can do.
Wow.
The marketing piece here is absolutely critical, as it is they're exceptionally good at targeting children. And you called out one of the characters here, which is like it's incredible. Like this thing hasn't been in use for like 30 years and you still called it out immediately. So in 1991, the American Medical Association found that one third of 3-year-olds and half of 6-year-olds recognized Joe Camel over Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. I remember Joe Camel.
Well, of course, we all remember Joe Camel.
That's so funny. Like, who's I, what a good idea. Let's
This is how
Joe.
Tony the Tiger, the Tricks Bunny, the Cap'n Crunch Captain, that's how all these
Yeah.
characters came into being. And that's what drove the market for children wanting probably the single worst thing to put in their bodies, which is like sugar cereal with like a bunch of
Yeah.
food dye number one, two, three, and four
Die.
in it. Yeah. So Philip Morris's expertise, besides marketing, was also how to create high margin products, which led to the processing of food beyond what is natural and what should be on shelves today. The use of things like artificial flavor, color, preservatives to enhance shelf life also came around this time. Emulsifiers, which I don't even know what emulsifier is. Do you even know what this is?
No, that's a good question. I don't know really what it means by processed food.
Basically some things just don't go together. Like if
Hmm.
you like if you were to take if you were to try and make like natural mayonnaise without emulsifiers, they would separate, right? The oil would separate from the cream and all that stuff. I don't actually know how you
Hmm.
make mayonnaise. The reason why it all
I think
sticks
it's like egg
together,
whites and oil, but yes, continue.
yeah, so whatever it is. But like oil generally doesn't stick to anything. Anything that you put in oil separates from oil, essentially.
Hmm.
And an emulsifier combats the natural tendencies of that product to separate so that it
Okay.
appears nicer to you, but it's just another chemical you're putting in your body.
Is that why there's like some peanut butter that you have to stir?
Yeah. Yeah. Natural peanut
Okay.
butter you have to stir.
I hate that. I
Yeah.
always spill it. It's the worst.
But it's better for you. You should be eating that instead of fake peanut butter.
No, I know. I mean, I
So anyway,
understand.
but the whole aspect of how food stopped resembling food, like it's this 1980s to 90s takeover of all this by tobacco company. It's crazy.
Wow.
So, these techniques were also perfected around this time by fast food restaurants. The explosion of fast food, like really, like
Hmm.
I mean, the 1960s when like McDonald's, for example, started becoming a thing, but back then it was still like a hamburger patty, like you know what I mean? Like, it was still food. As
Hmm.
opposed to like things that were just like so processed they barely resembled a cow by the time you're done with it.
Hmm.
There are a lot of culprits in why things are the way they are. I think I'll mostly blame the Food and Drug Administration for prioritizing cheap and easy access to food over good food,
Hmm.
and for prioritizing industry growth over general health. But there's good news. So the good news is that people are speaking. So I think most people are starting to realize that the stuff that they are putting in their bodies has like an impact on how they feel and what they do. And
Hmm.
that's why you see this rise of natural grocery stores like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Central Market
Hmm.
here in Texas, Sprouts, etc., as an indicator that the market in general is craving natural and less processed foods.
Hmm.
The bad news is it's not that accessible. Like I honestly, like,
Hmm.
I don't I will shop at a Whole Foods or Central Market when I need something specific, right? Like I need like a cut of meat that I know is like super good and like you know what I mean? Like it's I'm not gonna go there and get like milk, eggs, bread. It's just too expensive.
Yeah,
Do you feel that
absolutely.
way?
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely have gone in there before and like looked at an artichoke and it was like $9. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, I can I know artichoke. But I also will like go to Whole Foods if I'm like, well, the last time I went to Whole Foods was when I was on like a work trip, spending work money to buy dinner, you know? And then I was like, cool, I'll do like the hot bar or whatever.
Um, you've never been to a Central Market, have you?
I don't think so.
Okay, so Central Market must be like a uniquely Texas thing because we have HEB here, and HEB
Hmm.
has like that's like the normal grocery store. Then they have Central Market, and I next time you're here, I'm gonna take you to one because it is like it will shame a Whole Foods. Like it
I've
is
definitely been in a very
incredible.
beautiful Whole Foods in Austin.
Probably the first one was in Austin. The first one was in
Yeah.
downtown. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're great. Don't get me wrong. I like Whole Foods, but like Central Markets here are unbelievable. 20 species of grapes, just all
Right.
kinds, like 50 kinds of mushrooms. It's unbelievable.
Hmm. Hmm.
But again, it's not really accessible, right? It's like that's where the concept now arises where a you got to be super wealthy to have the luxury of being cognizant of your
Hmm.
food to be able to shop at these places. But then there's some people that even if they had access to the money, they don't have access to the stores because there's food
Right.
deserts all around
Right.
America. So these are like impoverished places where grocery stores don't feel like there's any revenue opportunity. So why would they set up a grocery store? Which like also makes sense. Why would you if you're
No,
gonna have
totally.
to run a
There's
business?
places here where like so we have a couple grocery stores. We have a Walmart, a Vons, and Aldi, like all whatever. We have plenty. But there are places that are like 20 to 30 minutes in either direction of where I live, where the only thing they have is a Dollar General, you
Of
know.
course. Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're not getting. There's no like fresh food, and then like the food is also like weirdly proportioned. It's like Dollar General is always like weird deals. It's a whole racket of like weird things.
And that's exactly the next point. It's like those
Yeah.
people, the only place where they could get their food is from a Dollar General, a fast
Hmm.
food joint, the corner market where like the hot dog was on the floor 20 minutes ago. And you know, like
Hmm.
it's just not good stuff for you.
Yeah. Like even in like in New York City, like you, which I think was really cool, but like you would get produce at like a corner thing, you know? Like there were corner places, especially when I lived in Queens, where like it was like a store. I don't know. I mean, who knows if they're there anymore, but like run by like a family forever, and that's where you get your fresh produce, not the grocery store, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So it was like an interesting, like older way of shopping where you would have to go to like different places for different things, as opposed to like the one-stop shop or something, which I'm sure is also part of it too. If you're like, I'm going to Walmart for, you know, a PS5 and yogurt.
I can't do that. I can't. I think I've aged out of that. Like, there's a really good Target next to me that has like a grocery section, and I've bought fruit from there before, and I'm like, it just makes me feel different. I don't know
Mhm.
why, but like, it's just not the same as like a grocery store.
I mostly buy food at mostly buy food at the Walmart because it's cheaper and it's convenient. But
It's
I
definitely
do
cheaper and it's
I
definitely
do want
convenient.
I am very all for a Trader Joe's in my neighborhood too. Even though their produce isn't that great, but the rest of the stuff I think is really good.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
So people have tried fixing this in the past. So it all seems like how we got to where we are right now has to do with how bad things were in the US back in the day with access to food. So we
Hmm.
did not have an abundance, we did not have an overabundance issue. We had underabundance issue, whatever we want to
Hmm.
call that.
Hmm.
LBJ is the one who launched his war on poverty and hunger during his administration, which established kind of the food welfare program.
Hmm.
Um, and that's other presidents did other things as well, but that was kind of like the starting point of how we ended up in a situation where we have more food than we really need, and the kind of food we have is
Hmm.
horrible anyways. The pattern was probably or the most impactful president on this was probably Richard Nixon.
Hmm.
So Nixon's administration was super focused on increasing the food supply and reducing costs, which led to basically factory farming. That was
Hmm.
that was the inception of factory farming was Richard Nixon, as well as the subsidization of corn and soy.
Hmm.
Corn flooded the market because the U.S. government was paying farmers to produce it, even if there
Hmm.
wasn't a buyer for it. So
Hmm.
that flooded the market, which drove the price down dramatically and led to the use of it as high fructose corn syrup to replace sugar, which isn't good, but at least it's a real food. Like it's a whole
Hmm.
food. It comes out of a plant. Um, it's a great case study in the law of unintended consequences because I think that Nixon's heart was actually in the right place here, but
Hmm.
the downstream impact created the scaffolding on which someone like Philip Morris, McDonald's, or whoever else could start building these empires of these super processed shitty foods and drowning kids in it, basically.
I went to the library next in Yucca Valley, the town next door to ours, had a book sale yesterday, and a bunch of kids' books for free. It was wonderful. We got a ton of stuff, but I got a book on Pat Nixon, and it has like photos in it, and the photos are like Richard Nixon on the beach with his family, and it's always so. I always just like whenever I remember he's from California, I'm like, how are you from California? How are you ever on a beach?
I
You
know.
know, even
I,
the pictures of him on the beach, he looks very happy, but his face is not the face of a person who's been to the beach.
I
But
agree
he's
with you.
been to the beach.
Whenever I found out that his presidential library was in Loma Linda, I was like, why? Like, why shouldn't it be like in a farm in like the middle of Pennsylvania or something?
I know. I think Miles and I are going to go in a couple weeks because I have to take him to the doctor over there. And I was like, let's go to the Nixon Library. But it's always weird to me that he's from California.
Yes, I would
And I
agree
think he
with
had
you.
a lot of good intentions, you know?
Also, Loma Linda was apparently before all this like saying that it's not real. It was apparently a blue zone city in the
Huh.
U.S. Yeah. So I think the way that this gets addressed is by looking at incentive structures and finding ways to subsidize and incentivize producing clean, whole food and getting rid of factory farming systems. The factory farm stuff is so disgusting, Taylor, because in wide expanses of
Hmm.
space here in Texas, as you drive, you will smell the factory farms. Like,
Oh, yeah.
how is it legal to keep animals like this? Like
I know.
giant animals stuffed in cage. Like it's
It's terrible.
unbelievably terrible. It's unbelievably cruel. And a lot of our own diseases are sourced like mad cow. They take diseased cows, process them there, and then feed them to like they're not carnivores. They're like it's
Hmm.
unbelievable how horrible that system is, and that needs to change as well. And that's like a piece of this is like changing the factory farm system, increasing the education and the accessibility of community gardens, which like Michelle Obama really tried hard to do, and she was called like a psycho for doing it, which is like
I know.
like
Like, I'm sorry, I
why
want to
is
give
that
kids
so bad?
vegetables.
Like
You witch, you know? Like,
I like I went back in my memory bank and was like, were Republicans really that mad at Michelle Obama? I was like, oh yeah, they were. They really, really, really
it's
were
so
pissed that she
funny. Like, I
wanted
just
to.
can't. I mean, what? Yeah.
Some cities, this is something that I found interesting, which kind of touches on what you brought up before when we were talking about this. But like, I don't like this concept, but they have this tax on sugary drinks. But I looked this up in my own area where a bottle of Coke, like a little one-use bottle, is cheaper than like the equivalently marketed nice bottle of water, right? Like
Hmm.
like if you look for apples to apples, like yes, you can also go get like these super flimsy bottles of water for way cheap, and like the sticker rips off the second you hold it. You know, it's like shit. Like like it's not a like for like product. If you're gonna compare it to Coke, you want to compare it to like a Fiji water or something, and those are
Hmm.
actually more expensive than the Coke is.
Totally.
Um,
I
so
mean,
it
they do that
feels
with cigarettes. Like, I remember, like in New York City 20 years ago, when I was smoking cigarettes there, the tax was insane, you know, and it's way more. I don't know how much cigarettes cost, but like, you know, they made it more and more,
well
trying to make it.
that seems fair to me because the alternative is to breathe air and air's free. But I don't think it's fair to like charge a poor person a
Yes,
tax when they couldn't get the like for like product for less than that product.
right, right. That totally makes sense.
Then you
essentially.
have the rise of semaglutides and GLP-1s, and that's like the Wegovy's, the Ozempics of the world, which showed that they can help regulate hunger and overeating, and the results are typically somewhere in the 20% loss of body weight, of
Hmm.
20%. Um, but then it creates the exact same problem we discussed before because they're like stupid expensive. Like they're super, super
Yeah.
expensive. Most insurances will not cover them unless you like have a severe, severe, severe problem. Um, and it's catered to the same people that also can afford to shop at Whole Foods every day.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I feel like I know people who have been prescribed Ozempic in different for different reasons, and a lot of them can't take it because they can't afford it.
but if you're prescribed it, won't your insurance cover it?
No,
Really? If you're
that's not how
prescribed
insurance
it?
works. No, they will. I mean, it'll still be like super expensive on your insurance.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I assumed my assumption was you would only get it. You know what? There's two categories here. One is everybody has to get it prescribed, but I think that if you have like a bariatric situation,
hmm,
I think in that situation your insurance will probably have to cover it. But in that situation, you're probably also like 600 pounds. So like you have a
yeah.
whole host of other problems.
I mean, I don't really get it because I remember. Do you remember I was saying how my diabetes medication? I mean, like my pre-diabetes pill was 54 cents a month.
No, I don't, but that sounds great.
Well, it was, and then this month it was $4. And they were like, "Oh, it's a new year, like whatever, things are about to change for prescription drugs." And like the rise from $54 to 54 cents to $4 isn't going to break my bank, but a rise from $54 to $400 would, you know?
Well, I think Taylor, what that is tied to, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Again, this is also convoluted. Like our healthcare system, if you were to try and untangle it, would take someone 50 billion years. AI can
Yeah.
probably do it eventually, but I think because the Biden administration was negotiating reduced rates on pharmaceuticals. Remember this? There was like
Yeah, yeah.
10 drugs on the schedule, and then there's gonna be 10 more and 10 more. Like it was like some weird thing like
Hmm.
that. But part of the arguments I was hearing on the other side of it was like, we have to charge this much because if we do not charge this much, we cannot afford the research and development on net new drugs because it takes 20 years to get FDA approval. So we got to sink billions of dollars on these
Hmm.
drugs, and we need the old drugs to pay for the new drugs.
I don't know how much
It's
I believe that, but like I don't know the details because I know that like Biden made insulin $35 a month. Now it's going to be back to $1,000 a month, but it costs $2 to make. So I don't understand.
my assumption is there's probably somewhere in the gray. I'm not going to say I'm going to trust the healthcare professionals when they tell me stories about why they just need to charge or whatever they
Yeah.
need to charge, but there's probably some. Well, there's also the idea. I mean, the part of it that makes sense to me is like, yeah, like getting a drug approved for public consumption probably takes billions of dollars and tons of years before you
Hmm.
realize a single dollar sale out of that. And like
Hmm.
somewhere, somehow, the cost needs to be borne somewhere in the
Hmm.
equation. It's just I don't know
Hmm.
what the right
But
way to
also,
do
but
that
then
is.
that's where we see like the CEOs are getting like $1 billion. And you're like, I don't know.
Well, some of them are getting shot in the back,
They could
but
submit, they could, chip in, I don't know what it is.
yes, that's.
But
I'm
we'll see.
not. I'm not. Listen, Luigi, don't come for me. I'm not standing up for the healthcare
No,
insurance
totally.
companies. I'm just saying, like, there's arguments to be made on all sides here, I think.
There was things. Do you know James Franco's brother? What's his name? Something Franco. But he looks like Luigi.
Yes,
And
yes.
he like I saw something today on the news where he was like, I have never been gotten more text messages in my whole entire life than I did.
Poor guy.
And they caught that guy, and people were like, "Oh my God,
He does look
this
just like him.
moment."
He's probably in
Dave,
talks to
Dave Franco, right?
Dave Franco, yeah. Is it really Dave?
Isn't it?
I guess. Doesn't look
Mm.
like Dave. But it's gotta be, yeah, you're right. I think it's Dave. But my last point here is again like the trade-offs. Like you eat a bunch of sugary stuff, you eat a bunch of super processed stuff, you feel like shit, and your body doesn't perform well, and then you fall into a healthcare system that is a
Hmm.
nightmare to navigate and all that. Like it is all kind of like a trade-off, one way or the other. And I actually think the exact same thing about drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. Like I think like I don't know. Like, I think that nothing's for free. I think that if you put something in your body that you get some sort of a benefit out of, that you pay for it eventually. And I think that I don't know. I hopefully not, but like in 30 years, if we find out that Ozempic turned your guts into Jello, then like okay, well, shit, like there it is. Like we I think that in the end, it's probably better to whatever extent your socioeconomic status allows you to engage in activity
Hmm.
and to try to eat as whole foods as possible as consistently as possible.
Hmm.
So you don't ever end up in a situation where you are in the healthcare system and then you're
That
stuck
sucks, but like, yeah, no, like the answer is to like avoid it in a lot of
because then Taylor,
ways.
like, I mean, okay, so now I take this pill for my hypertension and that
Hmm.
causes my like
No, I
you're
know.
how you're made is like the way it should work. When you start fiddling with one thing or the other, then like it throws the rest of it off kilter, I think.
And
So
I think, I don't know. I think it's a balance. People died from those things before we had the pills for them. You know what I mean? Like, there's people who are
die from what?
predisposed, like high cholesterol or like blood heart attacks before all of this. So it's not like it's like some of it's like you said, some of it's genetic, some of it is whatever. So if you need medicine for some things, it's not necessarily bad.
Well, I'm going with the an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure.
Fair.
Yeah, I think that if you can do anything you can do to not get into that cycle, it would behoove you not to, and you cannot count on product marketing from tobacco companies.
No.
Like, just make your own decisions. Like, feel how your body feels and decide how to do things on your own. Don't
Yeah.
listen to advertisements. That's my theory.
Unless it's an advertisement to listen to this podcast.
Please subscribe, like, tell your friends. And that's our story doomed to fail brought to you by Camel Cools.
But
I don't even know what they're
Joe
called
Camel,
anymore. Camel Cools, is that what they? No,
I
Cools are
know.
different, right? Camels are
Uh, yeah, we've talked about it before, but I love smoking cigarettes. I'm not going to, but I dream about it. I think I dreamed about it last night.
I think that like man, if you could cut our lungs open, I bet we did permanent damage, Taylor.
I absolutely, I'm sure that I did, but I remember when I stopped smoking, like for real, I coughed up tar, you know,
Seriously?
absolutely. And then I had to like get over it. And I'm sure there's still something in there, but it's been a long time, but I couldn't like breathe all the way in,
How long did you smoke for?
like 8 years.
Like a pack a day, you think?
No, much less than that.
Okay.
Like maybe a pack a week, but
That's not
like
bad. That's
still.
not that bad.
I mean, it's all
I had
any, I think, yeah,
I've done a pack in a weekend when I'm like drinking with friends.
yeah, it's best. But I
I think
won't
I've
do
done
it
a
because
pack in one weekend with you.
no, I wasn't smoking by the time I got to LA.
Fine, I'll be the bad one only.
I know. I wish that I was. I mean, again, if we can find out to make a way to make that not kill you, I'd be down for that one.
But
But yeah,
like,
no, I feel better when I eat better. I feel like your body knows these things, so like, in moderation, but also like it's a good warning that like it's hard to come back from a lifetime of bad eating,
yeah,
which my kids
it's
do.
very
My
hard.
kids eat terrible. I cannot get them to eat good food, and it's just like not the battle that I want to fight every day. But
And that's honestly, Taylor, like my opinion is like that's fine. It's not like if you house like a pizza every now and then or
hmm
what like it's not that's not what matters. What matters is like the habit and
hmm
the lack of indoctrination. As long because your kids didn't weren't raised the way we were. Like we like
hmm
you're great. Like we would say that shit. We would dress up as Tony the Tiger for Halloween. Like
hmm
we were indoctrinated. It was like embedded in us. So like these are the things that you're supposed to like. It was everywhere. Like your kids, I don't think they do that anymore because I don't think it's like acceptable to do that
Yeah,
anymore.
I mean, they don't really watch commercials for food or commercials at all, also. But they do see like things that are like, well, we got one time I saw Tony the Tiger at Walmart. He was there. Like someone dressed like Tony the Tiger. Florence was not amused and was afraid of him. But like, yeah, I mean, they know about like, I don't know, I guess there's like a lot of candy and stuff, but I'm not the kind of person who's like, only have one candy on Halloween. I'm like, eat till you get sick. It's Halloween, you know?
And like and they're young and they're kids and like
Yeah.
the only thing that matters is like not develop like a dependency on like I have to have sugar. I have to
Yeah.
like it's like once that because you can a lot of people go through those phases and then they go into like they join fitness so they get in like sports in high school and then they
Yeah.
join fitness groups in college like and then their lifestyle becomes their lifestyle and like that's totally fine. It's not irredeemable. It's just like don't start that habit that results in bad things. I was gonna say the biggest risk I think like now is things like vaping. Like that's gotta be so bad. That's gotta be
Yeah,
so bad.
I
Nothing should
feel
taste
that.
sweet in your lungs. Like you
Oh
shouldn't have
God,
sugar in there.
no. Vaping is really bad for you.
Also, you
I
look like
don't
a
know.
douchebag. Nobody looks cool. Literally, like smoking, everybody looks cool smoking.
100%.
Vaping, nobody looks cool.
Agree to agree.
Are we old, Taylor? Are we shaking our fists in the air?
A little bit. But I do agree that like I've seen really bad things about people who are vaping like, a million times a day and then they like, have very terrible like their lungs or have to get like new lungs or they die and they're like 25, you know. So
Crazy.
but like I think it's the same with like everything else where it's like I don't know, sometimes I see like people who are whatchamacallit, like drink like 15 Monster Energy drinks a day, you know? And like it's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess everything in moderation.
Yeah. If you
Except
can.
smoking. Just don't smoke or vape.
Yeah, I know.
Or at least wait until you're 80, then start smoking.
That's a good point. I feel like if I like Apocalypse Day, I'm gonna smoke again.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Me too. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although that was never my thing. My thing was dipping. I like
Oh
dipping.
yeah, I remember you used to dip.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyways,
Hmm.
that is my story. This has been it was very, very educational. When I learned about the tobacco company thing, I was like, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, is this real? Like this, how is this real?
I know. I don't. Those guys, like those barons of evil. Like who are they? What are they doing? Why are they doing that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those people who are like, yes, my life's work is to get children to eat food that will hurt them. Like
It's like it's
that's your
weird.
life's work?
Yeah, where do you like, I went on their website. I went on Altria's website and like what is it, if you Google Altria, I forgot what the tagline was now. Oh, the tagline if you Google Altria is Altria Group, moving beyond smoking.
To like other things that could hurt you, right?
Altria is moving beyond smoking, leading the way in moving adult smokers away from cigarettes to taking action to transition. It's just nonsense. It's just like nonsense gobbledygook language. Like,
Hmm. Yeah. What does that mean? Does it mean anything? Like, did you ever watch Better Off Ted?
no.
It was like it's like 2 seasons. It's pretty great, and it is they work at a place called Viridian Dynamics, and they're always building things like a plate that can be a bomb, like like stuff like that, like a chair that's so itchy you have to work harder because you can't wait for the day to be over, like things like that. But they have like interludes with commercials, and it's like Viridian Dynamics. We here we're like family. That's why we work on holidays, stuff like that. And then and they're like, because you want to see your family on the holidays. It's just like really funny, and like I think that yeah, I think of that too because they're like obviously hiding something evil, like working
Yeah.
together, da da da. And you're like, huh, doesn't feel great.
Yeah, this place is just like so gray. Um, but anyways, that's my story, Taylor. Hope you liked it. Please tell us what you think. If you have any opinions on the topic, write to us at doomtofailpod@gmail.com. Follow us on the socials at doomtofailpod. Anything else, Taylor?
Yeah, I have a couple messages from people
Shoot.
that were funny. Nadine, our friend Nadine, who lives in Canada, agrees with me about how the government is so much just involved in everyday life, like paving the roads and the garbage and those things that like we appreciate the government for, based on our conversation about the government. Because you were like, I don't want it in my life, and I'm like, it's
Well,
already
no, no,
everywhere.
no. I should have probably painted that in a little bit. I'm aware that like municipal government is in my life
Hmm.
everywhere. My point was that there's like, yeah, it's just a difference of opinion. Like, I don't think we need a crazy, massive federal government. It's funny because I was doing research initially on Aaron Schwartzman. Do you remember him?
Mm-mm.
So Aaron Schwartzman was one of the founders of Reddit, and
Mm-hmm.
he became a progressive activist, and he went on JSTOR and some other proprietary database and released all this research material or some sort of material that like was I don't know. It was like it was like a progressive movement thing that he did. I forgot what exactly what it was. but he got super overcharged by the federal government for doing this, and they were trying to set an example. It was just an example of like, oh, if the federal government wants you in their crosshairs, they
Yes.
will do whatever they can to absolutely cripple and destroy you, and they have the power to do that. And that kid killed himself, and he was like
Oh.
a legit genius who like created.
Did you remember when I saw this like weird, I don't know, this is reminding me of this like thing where like Google, one of their plans was for like Google Books and they wanted to scan every book that was ever made and
Sounds like it sounds like this. It sounds like it would be horribly, horribly illegal.
make them free. Exactly. And the government was like, you can't do that.
But that's my point. That's what
Yeah.
my point is that like in these situations, like there's a million examples. I'm not going to go into the details, but it's like you just don't want the government knocking on your door and like asking
Yeah.
you shit.
Don't make them mad.
But like yeah, like the municipal government in Texas in Austin, yeah, they paved the road down the street for me, and that's great. It's just
Yeah.
like I don't see a need for the other side of it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm for it. Like, whatever.
I know.
Lots of
I actually
back and
thought about
forth.
that. I thought
Yeah.
about that earlier too. It was like, oh, there's like a constituency that's like I'm pro big government, and I'm like I'm not that constituency.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I am. And like, so, I mean, but with caveats, like, don't do bad things, but also like, I appreciate that they're not, I'm not getting nuked yet. Today.
Which
Today.
again, it's fun. Like it's a difference of opinion. I don't know where the
Yeah.
philosophy comes from because I've never had any moment where like I read something and like I just always like I, I don't know where it comes from, but like it's just ingrained in me. Maybe it's because of the whole immigrant thing of like Iran, where like the federal government became this entity that like ran your life and like owned you,
Yes.
and I think like maybe that's like a generational trauma that's embedded in me or something.
I think that that totally makes sense because I actually also that makes sense because I know people from like communist bloc countries who are very much like absolutely not, you know? And I'm like, I get it. You're from, you know, someplace that the government was like really terrible. So I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. That totally makes sense. Um, one more listener mail. Listener Juan Carlos agrees with you to eat Korean barbecue until death.
That made my day today. Thank you, Juan.
That was funny. He was like, "Oh my God, that was so funny." So that was appreciated.
And for Juan, I actually had Korean barbecue yesterday. So
Nice.
there you go.
Nice. Um, yeah,
Anything else?
cool. No, that's it. Thanks, friends. Thanks, Farz.
Sweet. We'll go ahead and cut it off. Thank you, Taylor.